E-cigarette companies are effectively traversing the wild west of regulations. The growth's been unprecedented, and the FDA saw an opportunity to see e-cigarettes as part of a larger smoking cessation plan, where adults who are addicted to traditional smoking products could transition to e-cigarettes and eventually out of nicotine altogether. While there is such evidence, there's some evidence that this might work. The FDA saw an unexpected and excessive increase in the use of e-cigarettes by minors. More than 3.6 million middle and high school students across the country were e-cigarette users in 2018, according to the National Youth Tobacco Survey. So the US has rules dating back to the 1970s about marketing tobacco to young people, including bans on TV and radio cigarette ads. Tobacco companies claim that they don't target young people with advertising, but the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids investigation asserts that cigarette makers marketed to younger generations using influencer advertising. So influencer advertising is when you have someone that is relatively reputable, someone you trust, someone you follow on Instagram or on Twitter, talks about it in a positive light. Unfortunately, because these are on these social media platforms that seem to exist for a brief period of time, it's relatively nascent, it's relatively unregulated, and can therefore fly under the radar sometimes. So the influencer campaigns were reviewed in the investigation, and then the people who had large social media followings were basically paid to post photos featuring cigarette brands or using e-cigarette products. These influencers were trained on what brands to promote, when to post the pictures for the highest engagement, and which hashtags to use to promote cigarettes, and how to take natural-looking photos that didn't look like marketing. Essentially, what a lot of people call native marketing, if you will. For example, influencers in Italy paid to promote Lucky Strike were told to keep the health warnings on the cigarette packs out of the photos. If anyone follows any kind of drug ads, that would be something OPDP would be very, very upset with. Tobacco companies also organize parties and contests and encourage participants to share the content on social media. One of the most common ones that people think about is Juul, and in an early social media campaign, Juul's YouTube marketing included images of young people who were sort of attractive and were influencing to use the hashtag share a Juul moment. Those early campaigns sparked an explosion of video, and people and kids basically would start doing it themselves and use hashtags like "Do it for Juul" or "Juul Life." Obviously, it was very, very successful, and that's where it became problematic. And the tobacco companies were sued. And in November, tobacco companies began airing court-mandated anti-smoking corrective statements that were put on primetime TV, put on full-page newspaper ads. Now, here's the problem with that. Kids don't watch primetime TV or read full-page print newspaper ads. They're on social media, they're on Twitter, they're on LinkedIn. Maybe not LinkedIn, Instagram maybe. Philip Morris, for example, said that it launched an internal investigation into marketing posts and photographs, including a paid post plugging the tobacco product by 21-year-old influencer Alina Tapolina. Interestingly, the company's internal marketing standards prohibited from promoting tobacco products with youth-oriented celebrities or models who appear to be under the age of 25, which is interesting. Philip Morris itself responded. They said that we've taken the decision to suspend all of our product-related digital influencer actions globally. While the influencer in question is a legal adult, she's under 25, and our guidance called for influencers to be over the age of 25, and that's a clear breach of our guidance. Oddly, a lot of the messages actually contained hashtags like IQOS ambassador. So the question was, what actually happened? And how did this person get through? Was it just some of the critics have come out and actually said things like these companies are objecting and changing only when confronted, and that's not either the spirit or the goal of these guidances or the requirements, if you will. So what is Juul, for example, said that it stopped using social media influencers and requires anyone in its ads to be a former cigarette smoker older than 35. Government actions, on the other hand, the government's come out and tried to do things. The FTC said that they may have a strong case against the tobacco companies and is cracking down on influencers for non-disclosure, and it's likely to pay attention to a major investigation suggesting tobacco companies have been taking care of this relatively immature marketing space. The FDA, when they were approving the IQOS device, for example, required Philip Morris to provide detailed analysis of the age ranges of consumers that it reaches through digital advertising. Philip Morris is required to submit any new advertising campaigns, including digital and social media efforts, to the FDA at least 30 days before it plans to launch them. So the FDA is trying to be proactive, if you will. It also required that Philip Morris would ensure that any paid influencers promoting the product must disclose, quote unquote, any relationships between you and the entities that create labeling for advertised market and or promote the products on your behalf or at your discretion. If you start comparing this to the FDA's guidances around drugs, for example, one of the key, what you start seeing are these parallels. For example, the FDA put out a third-party guidance for drugs, and they said that if people promote things on your behalf, and you are said to take that liability on yourself, and you're responsible for that in many ways. The idea is to restrict access to tobacco marketing, and the FDA said that this would apply especially in shared digital properties such as social media sites. Furthermore, the FDA and the FTC specifically pointed to flavored e-liquid products that recommended to their social media following to try flavors like tropical freeze, strawberry kiwi, cotton cookies, and watermelon patch. The FDA Center for Tobacco Products has already stopped the sales of flavored nicotine-containing products, except for mint, menthol, and tobacco flavors, since allegedly minors do not typically use those flavors, which is interesting to me because conversations I've had suggest that minors do actually like the mint flavor. So we'll see how that space develops. The influencers that were identified, if you would, were working on behalf of Solace Vapor, Hype City Vapors, Humble Juice Company, and Artist Liquid Labs. These companies have been instructed to tell the FDA within 15 days, tell the FDA and the FTC within 15 days how they're going to address the agency's concerns. Interestingly, Juul didn't get one of these letters. Obviously, there's a larger issue that people are looking at with Juul. Facing mounting pressure over charges that it advertised to youth, Juul closed its Facebook and Instagram accounts and shifted its marketing focus to older adults who are already smokers. So companies like Solace Vapor have already said that they have a plan, and what they're going to do is they terminate their relationship with the social media influencer who is accused of improperly marketing the company's products on social media. All of Solace Vapor's internal packaging, marketing, nicotine warnings are compliant with the FDA standards at the company. And we will be reviewing and terminating any and all third-party influencers who may not be compliant with our marketing policies. What is interesting to me here is what this speaks to. And I think that these companies at this moment have two different issues that they have to deal with. The first is a more immediate issue, which is how do you respond to the FDA? Solace Vapor, depending on what they said, may have one part of their process ready, which is the corrective action of terminating relationships that exist right now. However, there's a larger piece that needs to be spoken to. The larger piece speaks to how did these influencers get through in the first place? So the first one is, how do you respond to the FDA? How do you write these things out? How do you not make the typical mistakes that people make? And the second one is, how do you actually have a comprehensive remediation plan? The fact is that these products can actually help people quit smoking, especially adults. So in the larger scheme of helping people, the products themselves are not bad, and the FDA sees that. The problem that you face is that they're being inappropriately marketed and inappropriately targeted. And it's important that the FDA and the FTC take the right steps to ensure that these types of issues do not arise. Questions that these companies may want to start looking at outside the initial issue of how do you respond is internally looking. When you start doing an investigation, it actually be a comprehensive investigation. Maybe have an actual compliance department, which a lot of these companies don't actually have. Ask questions like, how did these plans make it through? How do you create a compliant marketing program? Do you have something like a PRC or a product review committee, if you will? What kind of root analysis was actually performed? How do you know that there were no other causes outside this root analysis? Again, if anyone has questions about how do you respond to the FDA, or how do you respond to the FTC, or how do you actually create a compliant marketing program, feel free to reach out to me at 215-948-8183. That's 215-948-8183. Or reach out to me at Darshan, D-A-R-S-H-A-N, at conformlaw.com. That's D-A-R-S-H-A-N at conformlaw.com.
Thank you for listening to the Darshan Talks podcast, regulatory guy, irregular podcast with host Darshan Kulkarni. If you have any questions for Darshan, reach out via Twitter at Darshan Talks or the show's website at darshantalks.com.